Before we start today's episode of the I'm Fine podcast, we want to make sure to thank our partners at Trio. Don't wait. Be ready and connect with Trio. FAFSA applications are currently open, and the sooner you apply, the higher the chances you have of receiving the full grant. The Trio staff at Governor State University are the perfect people to help you out. Trio can help with the financial aid process and scholarship searches. Trio can also provide fee waivers for admissions applications, assist with the admission application processes, online tutoring, help with GED referrals, and provide payments for the GED test. Trio provides various avenues for career explorations as well as resume and interview preparation. Trio can also help you understand and complete your FAFSA application. So if you are ready to take the next step on your educational journey, contact Trio at 708-235-3352 for more information, or visit their website, govst.edu/TRIOEOC. Welcome to another episode of the I'm Fine podcast, where a couple of knuckle-dragging veterans unpack the world of mental health as unprofessionally and informally as possible. I am Eric Peterson.
And I'm Brad Stozic.
And we are a couple of veterans that used to keep it high and tight, but now are pretty low and loose. And by talking about all things mental health related, we hope to take you from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine. Thank you for tuning in. We're on today's episode. We're going to talk about being hyper vigilant. We're going to define it, discuss the positives and the negatives, how it relates to mental health, share our own personal experiences in the hopes that we can help you become fine with hypervigilance. And we're going to do all of this with some help from our friend, Navy veteran, owner, and personal defense instructor at Guardian Concepts, and professional cotton candy server, John Haberkamp.
Welcome to the I'm Fine podcast with your freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional hosts, Eric Peterson and Brad Stozic.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Thanks, John. Thanks for being here, buddy.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Absolutely.
Always good to hear you, John.
Always good to hear you. Fuck. Sorry, buddy. I don't even realize all of these offensive things that I say. We had a little technical difficulties, figured it out. I'm fairly impressed.
Yeah.
We came in here, we started recording. Some of the mics weren't working. They're plugged into this thing called the Zoom pod track, which helps us record everything. And two of the jacks weren't working. And so I called Jake, who thankfully he answered. He walked me through a couple of troubleshooting things. We couldn't figure it out. He was about to come here, drive like 20, 25 minutes out here to help us out. And I pulled out from my bag of tricks something I learned when I was a wee child. And I tapped it. I blew into the XLR jack, just tapped it on my leg. And it fucking worked, bro.
Nintendo strikes again.
It works on everything.
Kids will never know the secret.
Like, I don't know what the secret sauce is sometimes just hitting electronics and making them fucking work. It's very impressive. I'm very happy with myself for getting this to work. And I'm glad that we were able actually to get this going, because you can't record. Like, we have to record today.
Yes.
Because you're getting some stuff done tomorrow, aren't you?
Sure am.
How are you feeling? What are you getting done, buddy?
I'm getting a little snippy snip.
A little snip snip? You excited?
Yeah.
Are you nervous at all about it?
No.
Good. Yeah, it's pretty in and out procedure, right?
He said it was like 10 minutes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem so bad.
Mm-mm.
There's a little bit of discomfort.
Yeah. And then I get to hang out on the couch all day tomorrow with a bag of peas on my nuts. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
So just another normal Wednesday, another normal Thursday.
Yep.
John, I appreciate you being here, my friend, especially to talk about something that we wanted to talk about, which is hypervigilance. So hypervigilance is when I think of how people think about the veteran community, one of the things that they think about most, in my opinion, is hypervigilance. Whether or not they know that they're thinking about that, I think that you're thinking about how veterans are hyper vigilant. That's like a stereotype because it plays into paranoia and things like that. Would you guys kind of agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think it's important, and I don't think it's discussed enough to really understand what hypervigilance is. So I'm glad that we could take an episode to do that. I'm glad John would be on here to talk about it with his experience with what he does with Guardian Concepts. This is definitely his wheelhouse. So before we get into it, I want to start out with a couple of definitions here. I want to define what hypervigilance is. So according to an article on health.com, hypervigilance is a state of heightened awareness and watchfulness. You may be hypervigilant if you are constantly on guard and on the lookout for danger, even when there is little to no risk of something bad happening. Hypervigilance can be a symptom of psychological conditions like PTSD and anxiety, and can sometimes be a sign of physical conditions like hypothyroidism or Alzheimer's. Recreational drugs and substance use disorders can also lead to hypervigilance. So before we talk about like hypervigilance more, I wanted to talk about being vigilant, period. So when you guys think about being vigilant, like what is vigilance to you guys? And why do you think it's so important in the veteran community? Because they say it all the time, stay vigilant. Like every veteran, every veteran organization, when people say something to somebody else, when vets talk to other vets, they're like, hey man, stay vigilant. Like why is vigilance so important? What do you guys think?
Vigilance is important because from the second we showed up to boot camp, we were reprogrammed into how we need to hold ourselves across the board. And no matter what branch you're in, it translates into your jobs because you don't know when the fight's going to come to you.
Right.
So we don't control when the fight shows up on our doorstep. And we try and mitigate it as much as possible. And we all know control is physiologically an illusion. We have zero control.
Yeah.
So we don't control when the fight shows up, but we increase our chances if we actually having the situational awareness, the mindset in order to just, pick up our eyeballs off the ground and kind of look around.
Like pay attention.
Yes.
I mean, almost with any job that you said that and I just looked over at Brad.
That's what I did. I left my eyeballs on the ground.
Son of a bitch, Brad.
Yep. I looked at him when I said it. He just too bad he couldn't see me.
Oh. Boom, boom. Coming in with 1, 2. When you're in the military, being vigilant is part of your job. No matter what you're doing, God forbid you are doing anything in the realm of high threat protection, security, any of that other kind of stuff, combat MOSs, like vigilance is how you stay alive, which is why when you are around some veterans and, you're like leaving, they're like, hey man, stay vigilant. Like, hey, stay alert, stay alive. Like there's reasons why people say that kind of stuff, right?
And it even goes past that because think about when you're out in town on liberty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Out having fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
What better prime targets is to catch American military service members.
Right.
Overseas, you know what I mean? In different countries and cities where we are completely unfamiliar with.
Yep.
And we're just out there painting the town without a care in the world most of the time and could have zero clue that there's a terrorist cell, something of that nature, watching our every move because we didn't stay vigilant.
And you get the intel briefs. If you've been in the military and you've been deployed, you get intel briefs like all the time. And like, maybe it's just my experience, but every intel brief was like 250 Muqtad militia, whatever the fuck. They're on their way to your base because they want to kill Eric Peterson tonight. Like every day the intel is like high threat, high threat, high threat.
Yes.
And so you hear that and I don't know, you're a human being. I mean, I understand like on one side of that, you become hyper vigilant because you're always like, I have to be aware. I have to be alert. I have to know what's going on. And then on the other side, you're almost becoming jaded to it at the same time. We're like, yeah, I got it. I'm in a war zone. All right, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Well, so when you were in Japan, was that still an issue for you? Did you feel like you needed to be hyper vigilant when you were in the town? Like how did the Marines treat that type of deployment?
Not so much. No. I mean, a little bit out in town because if you did stupid stuff, we would not be allowed to go out in town.
Right.
So I guess when it came to like watching your buddies, but as far as like terrorist threats or anything that like a threat to your life, it really didn't seem that threatening.
Yeah. Well, like when I would go in and out of country, with the State Department and DOD, we would fly in and out of Dubai. And so usually the layover, could be a few hours, could be could be 14 hours, whatever it was. And so when I got a long layover, I would go out into town, and dude, the second you walk outside in Dubai, the second you'd walk out that airport, you would get swarmed with people. And every person's like, hey, sir, you like women? I'm like, bro, I just walked out of the building. Calm down. Like, what are Americans coming here and doing? Clearly, it's evident. If that's the first thing you say when you run up to me, but they swarm you. And so it's like Einstein had that quote, I believe, it's only crazy until it works and then it's genius. It's like, I look at vigilance the same way because, like John said, when you're overseas, depending on the environment you're in, you're literally walking around with a target on your back. So you have to have that in the back of your mind. The question is, where do you draw the line between being vigilant and being hypervigilant when you're constantly thrust into that situation all the time? And that's very difficult. I think it's a very difficult thing to navigate. One of the things too that I found that I wanted to define is the difference between hypervigilance and paranoia, because hypervigilance can turn into paranoia. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And according to PTSDUK.org, paranoia is based on the delusional beliefs, whereas hypervigilance is not. That was their definition. I feel like it's super subjective because it's like, okay, delusional beliefs versus non-delusional beliefs. You're talking, if you're talking about the veteran community, depending on their experiences, you're talking about a group of people that are expecting to get shot at and blown up, who have been shot at and blown up, who've dealt with all this stuff in situations where you're in another culture and you're just driving through their downtown area and you get shot at and blown up. You know what I'm saying? Like, how are you supposed to not be vigilant? And then you come home, and when you're overseas, they're using IEDs. What are they using for IEDs? Coffee cans. Yeah. Or they got pressure plates. They got stuff attached to magazines that are laying on the ground, garbage, culverts. There's all of this stuff that in the intel briefs, they're like, you have to clear every culvert on foot. You need to watch out. If you see a magazine on the ground, do not pick it up. Do not blah, 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 blah. And then you come home and you're just supposed to shut that off. Yep, everything's fine. Nothing bad could happen here. And then you see bombings happen. You see shootings happen. You see all this stuff happen on our soil. And we're just not supposed to be a little on edge about it. You know what I mean? That's a really difficult thing to navigate. So I understood their definition, but I kind of had some problems with it. Why do you guys think that hypervigilance is so common in the veteran community?
Just what you said in itself. I mean, all the different environments we've been in, experiences we've had to go through that translate into what would be defined as normal civilian life.
Yeah.
Another example, Lieutenant Commander, when I was stationed out in San Diego, went down to Tijuana to go to the flea market.
Mm-hmm.
Broad daylight. Was doing nothing wrong but shopping.
Mm-hmm.
Got picked up by the federales.
Yep.
Sat in jail for 6 months.
Oh, God.
Because he didn't have $100 on him to pay the federales to let him go. On the spot.
Yep.
Jeez.
I mean, what do you do with that? You were shopping, and now you just got 6 months of sitting in a foreign country's jail system for just being an American soldier.
Expats are sitting in prisons across the country. People don't understand that.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Government's not coming to get you, depending on what you're there for. Even if you're in the military, they might not come to get you. But I mean,
well, that was the thing. The military was trying to get him out, but I guess that's why he sat there for 6 months.
Yeah.
I mean, it forces you. So on top of all the training that you go through and the combat experiences that you're dealing with, and now you come back to the stateside, and again, you've already said it. Some of those things translate into the civilian world in regards to, hey, do I pick up that bag of trash that I see, you know what I mean, a kid left out in the middle of the street?
Right.
What's in that bag of trash now?
Right.
I want to do my citizen duty of keeping my country clean, but last time I seen that, or last time someone did that, their innards were all over my Humvee vehicle.
And again, God forbid you dealt with suicide bombers. You know, we had suicide bombers, and the constant threat was that they were wearing burqas. So what are you supposed to do? How are you supposed to know if they're wearing a vest unless the wind hits them in such a way that it would show a profile of something that doesn't look like it should be under a burqa? Other than that, how do you know? So you just sit there and you see these things and it forces you to be hypervigilant. Like I don't understand. And I wish I could define where that line is, but I personally don't see it. I don't see how you can just say I'm vigilant, but not hypervigilant when you've gone through those things, because war doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. People die that aren't supposed to die. Things happen that aren't supposed to happen. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no equation to it. And then you're just expected to go home and hopefully not bring any of that shit back and not think about it anymore.
And then even then, when you come back to, you can define normal life however you see fit.
Right. It's subjective. Yeah.
Yes, it's all subjective.
Yeah.
But you come back to stateside and now you don't know who the threats are.
Right.
So how does that translate?
Mm-hmm.
Because the threat can be just about anyone on the street as you're walking through downtown Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Or you turn a corner and all of a sudden now you see the protests or whatever could be going on in that moment. Or you're sitting at a street light and now you're getting carjacked.
Yep.
You're sitting at a gas pump and you're not paying attention because you're looking at the price of gas going through the roof as you're pumping your gas.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden someone goes in your side or your passenger door and steals your personal belongings and takes off.
Right. People are getting shot on 94
and 57
and 57,
and
which are
290.
two really popular interstates in our area. These things are happening, and it's so hard if you have any experience with dealing with any of those situations to not get set off by that stuff. You know what I mean? Like for me, when some veterans get triggered by like fireworks, and I understand it. Like maybe you were at a base and you got mortared like every fucking day. And so when you hear something go off, like it really messes with you. I respect that. You know what I'm saying? Like I get it. I'm not that dude. I don't mind fireworks. I like explosions. I like all that shit. None of that stuff bothers me because I got mortared a few times, but I didn't get mortared like every day where it would cause that type of issue for me. And then to try to deal with these things back in the States where, like you said, nobody's trying to stereotype, but there is a book called Behave by Dr. Robert Sapolsky, who is I'm not sure what his title is. He's got a lot of letters after his name. He's a professor, I think, at Harvard. He's all about the brain. He knows like everything that there is about the brain. And he wrote a book called Behave, and it's a very good book. I'm too dumb to understand it. I've gotten like halfway through it multiple times and I'm like, I can't, because I'm taking so much time to just look up definitions while I'm reading it. So in the very beginning of that book, he talks about a study, I believe it was done at the University of Colorado in Denver years ago, where the test was, and again, I'm just kind of saying all this from memory, so forgive me if I'm incorrect with this, but like they had all these people and they had to identify threats, and they did not have much time to do that. They had seconds to identify the threat and pull a trigger. Like that was the test. And what they found, they were measuring this wave or this like this path, this neural pathway in the brain.
Wave.
Sine wave. Okay, they were measuring the sine wave. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming that's what it was. And they were looking to see what correlation there was on like if they would pull the trigger faster or slower. And what they found in the study was anytime the threat was of a different color than the person that was pulling the trigger, I'm guessing that sine wave was shorter and they were more likely to pull the trigger. It didn't matter if I was white and they were black, I was black, they were white, Asian, it didn't matter. It just came down to if you were a different color than me, because I believe outside of that, it's because it's like a primal thing where we just know that we have to protect our own. And so you see something that looks different from you and it doesn't matter how it looks different. It's just different. And so it causes you to react that way. I'm not condoning that behavior. I'm just saying that that's something that as a culture, as a society, humanity, we have to work on that, because some people thought when I got home that like I had a problem with Muslims. It's like, nope. Like I loved our local nationals, the guys that I worked with closely, my translators, all those guys, we had like super close relationships. So it wasn't just because like I didn't come home and just because I was, in a combat zone, hitting ID or whatever, that I would come home and see a Muslim and just get angry at them. Like that's not what my hypervigilance is about. But when you see incidents where there are shootings, someone's driving a car into a crowd of fucking people, guys running around with knives, stabbing people, like, you take your pick. All of this stuff has happened in the past 6 months, if not sooner. And so it's so hard for veterans, I think, to like deal with that because of that.
Well, because again, it was programmed into our brain, even prior to. I mean, most people that served in the military had a protective nature prior to joining the military.
Yeah.
If you did the personality test, usually in grade school, if you did that, you'd probably be surprised at how many people had the protective personality prior to even going into the service.
Oh yeah.
And then you go into the service, and that gets honed even more.
Right.
And embodied into you and put into your brain. And essentially what we like to call is muscle memory, which is, I mean, let's be honest, for those that truly know how it works, muscle memory doesn't actually exist. The training process, the technical term would be myelination is the correct term. When you're technically training, what happens is you're trying to gain unconscious competence. And how to engage the full myelination, or what myelination is you're training the electrical impulses in your brain to react to specific stimuli in a certain fashion, and to do it the same way every single time. So for the normal people that use turn signals in their vehicles, depending on where the lever is, for me, you know what I mean? It's on the left side of my steering wheel. So if I'm going to make a left-hand turn, I automatically push it down.
Right.
I do that without even thinking about it.
Right.
Unconscious competence. I did it without even realizing that I was doing it, because it's what I have to do.
Right.
So we're going through the training aspect, and that's what the goal of the military is for them to train us to have unconscious competence, do what we need to do without even realizing that we do it. And now we come back home, and this is our home. This is our land. And we don't want to see anything bad happen at home. We don't want our women, children, and significant others, family, parents, anything of the sort, to see the stuff that we've already seen.
Right.
And that's why we end up becoming hyper vigilant. So that way we can protect our flock, our people.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah, I agree. Brad, what do you believe that do you deal with hypervigilance? Is yours because of service? Is yours because of the visual impairment? Like, what is your opinion on that?
I think now it's because of the visual impairment, but I don't really have. It's hard to be like hypervigilant because I can't really notice my surroundings. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like hard, but also not very hard. Does that make sense?
Does it lead to fear? Because you're like, the reason why I asked you this is because you have told me stories before where people in public have like done things, like stuck their hand in your pocket or got real close to you and whispered like, I don't think you're really blind or whatever. And for me, that would make it hard for me to want to go out in public. That would make me feel, I think, maybe a little bit more hypervigilant into people interacting with me. But
I think it depends on the situation, right? Like a public bathroom, I wouldn't really, that's where I kind of get freaked out the most. Yeah. Like crowded public bathrooms.
Can you say what happened in the public bathroom? Yeah.
So I was just standing in line at a White Sox game, like everybody does. And then the next thing I know,
there's nobody at the White Sox game. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's fair. At the event. The next thing I know, I feel someone on my shoulders and they just kind of like pushed me to a urinal, and like, they didn't say anything, and they weren't like, hey, do you need any help? Like nothing. They just,
like, I would have fucking freaked out, dude. I would have started, shucking and jiving or something.
Now, does your other senses become hypervigilant because of lack of vision? No,
that's not true.
I throw shit at them all the time.
I like to ask.
I wish it was, but no, I don't, like, it's hard. Like I said, I don't really know. And I have a weird thing of like trusting everybody too much, I think.
I don't think it's a weird thing. I think it makes you a really good person. I don't think that's a weird thing, but yes. Well, so again, you have a very positive disposition, I believe, on things. So, I mean, where I don't believe I would handle things as gracefully as you do. Like I said, I just applaud you for doing that. That's why I was kind of curious about that. Yeah. So to John's point, one of the things he was talking about, so where does hypervigilance come from? I took this from webmd.com. Hypervigilance is often a result of trauma. It doesn't just need to be from veterans. Obviously people who've been in combat, anybody who's survived abuse and or have post-traumatic stress disorder can exhibit hypervigilance. PTSD can be caused by a wide variety of incidents. Some of these traumatic events include living through a dangerous event, experiencing a serious or frightening injury, seeing another person get seriously hurt or die, feeling horror or extreme fear, experiencing trauma of any kind, and having no support afterward, living through multiple losses or traumas back to back. So those are some examples of traumatic events that can cause hypervigilance. So not only am I thinking that most of that's like every fucking deployment. Like a lot of that's, you are subjected to those things on a deployment. Dangerous events, serious frightening injuries, seeing people get hurt or die, feeling the extreme fear. And it said feeling horror. And like that, I understand what that means. Like that's a different feeling to genuinely feel that deep sense of fear and experiencing trauma of any kind. Dude, and it's like, again, that's not just the military. What I think about is I think about cops. I think about first responders. I'm thinking about those people that are dealing with that stuff. Teachers, anybody that's dealing with the public on a routine basis is subjected to all of this stuff, can be subjected to all of this stuff. So the thought about, you think about COVID, extreme fear, the hypervigilance that people might have about being sick and getting sick, and the precautions that they're willing to take so they won't do that because of how afraid they are. Like all of this stuff pertains to so many people outside of the military, but I just feel like the veteran community is a great one to look at and kind of study to understand where some of this comes from. So I thought that was interesting. Some symptoms of hypervigilance. So fixating on potential threats, dangerous people, animals, situations, having an increased startle reflex, so you're more likely to jump or be jarred by sudden sounds, having dilated pupils, higher heart rate, elevated blood pressure, behavioral avoidance, like obsessively of certain situations, and overestimation of threats or dangers. So I am definitely guilty of all of those. I don't know if my pupils are dilated. I feel like my blood pressure and heart rate go up. But like, dude, that's part of the reason why I have a problem like doing things in public. Sometimes it's much better now. But like, I think I said it before, my wife, Ashley, pointed it out. Like, she didn't want to take me grocery shopping anymore because I would just fixate on things. Especially, we all have kids. When you have kids and you're doing shit out in public, your hypervigilance kind of steps up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you're even more hyper fixated on, okay, like, and like John said, when you're in the military, depending on what your job was, sometimes it was your job to be hyper vigilant. When I walked into a room, I needed to know where the entrances and the exits were, where the hard rooms were, where if I needed to get buttoned up somewhere because we were taking fire or something was happening, like what the safest room in that building is. Like I had to walk into a building and immediately understand all of that stuff. When I was with the State Department and DOD, sometimes I was on advance parties. So I would it sounds super fun. We were the first ones that would go in and secure a site and wait for the actual VIP, whoever it was, the principal team to come in with the people, but we would have to lock the site down. So it was my job to make sure that it was safe. And then you just come home and you sort of expect it to be safe because we're in America, but then you watch the news and then you're like, what the fuck? How am I supposed to not be hyper vigilant? You know what I mean? So I definitely deal with a lot of that. Do you guys feel like, and John, because of what you do and because of how proficient you are at your job, do you still deal with hypervigilance? Do you have it dialed in because of your job? Is it a balance? Like what are your thoughts?
I balance more now. So like when I talk to the students, so for us, a lot of times we're in what we call condition orange, which is what would be defined as heightened awareness.
Yep.
So Colonel Jeff Cooper came out with the 4 color codes of awareness when it comes to people's ability to just be aware. The first one being condition white means you're completely unaware of what's going on. You're oblivious to what's going on around you. So you have no clue.
White people. Condition white people. Yep.
And I talk to people all the time, like as they're going through the classes and everything else, like evaluate your life as you're sitting here and be 100% honest with me. When are you at condition white? And most people, you know what I mean, they'll sit there and they'll be like, well, when I'm sleeping. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm sure as hell not aware when you're sleeping.
Right.
When I'm in the shower, when I'm in the grocery store, and you'll just hear people start blurting out everything.
Yeah.
Condition yellow is aware. That's the ultimate goal of what anyone should be at in regards to just being aware of what's going on around them.
Mm-hmm.
Condition orange is heightened awareness, to where we're constantly thinking that we're seeing a threat or the possibility of a threat. And so we're coming up with escape routes and how am I going to deal with this and exits and everything across the sun, waiting for the condition red to happen, which is the, oh shit moment. Guess what? It's happening. And we're somewhat striving for that is the hard part too. Cause it's, again, for a lot of veterans, they're missing the action.
Right.
So they're waiting for the condition red. So that way they can jump into action. Because that's the other thing too. A lot of family members have no clue what veterans have done, so they can't relate to us.
Mm-hmm.
So now sometimes veterans want to be able to show what they're capable of.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So for me, you know what I mean? Yes, I will flock between condition yellow and condition orange probably about 20 hours out of the day.
Yeah.
I average, you know what I mean, about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. You and I were talking about that the other night.
Yep.
When I first started Guardian, and my first students, I made pacts with every single one of them that if anything ever happened, my phone is always on. So different points, you get the phantom, you know what I mean, vibrate of your phone.
Oh, I hate that.
And so now I'm jumping up, you know what I mean, waiting to know what's happening. And it was some notification from social media that's just saying somebody posted something. And it's like, crap.
Yeah. But now you can't go back to sleep because you got super amped up when you heard it and you're like, oh no, what happened? Something bad happened, blah, 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 blah. And you start to get which I have to imagine is like an evolutionary thing because you need to be able to pop up and respond to a threat because, you know, our ancestors would pop up because they heard the growl of a tiger or some shit. And it's like, bro, you got to go. Like, you don't got time to be like, what's going on? Like, you got to get up and go and move and do something. You know what I mean? And then to try to go back to sleep when you have that feeling, like, have fun, because you're just sitting there either feeling dumb, feeling embarrassed, feeling ashamed, wishing something would have happened, thinking about what would have happened if something would have happened, going through that rabbit hole of thoughts. You know what I mean?
And
like,
obviously, again, going back to chasing what a lot of veterans are missing.
Yes.
Is the controlled chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in fear. And fear is addicting.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, fear is addicting to tons of different veterans.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially being in that environment where you, and like you said earlier, you want to, when you were on a team, your team knew what you were capable of. You knew what your teammates were capable of. And you come home and your family doesn't really understand that, right? Your family doesn't know what you were capable of. And sometimes it's almost like you want to show them so they understand what you are capable of and also understand what you work so hard to suppress every second of every minute of every hour of every day.
Absolutely true.
You know what I'm saying? And so that is another delicate line. And it's like, I'm always between, people always say violence isn't the answer. But if you would look categorically across as far as how our government handles things, I would have to disagree. It doesn't seem like it. And you ask most veterans and most guys that I know, or anybody that is proficient at violence, like fighters, anybody that's like an expert in any of the martial arts, like they don't want to fight, but they will. But they don't want to because they know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Like I love listening to Mike Tyson talk about like where he gets to mentally before he gets into a fight. Cause he's just like, he's not him. He's something else. Like he is something else. And I'm like, fucking dude, I don't think I'm anywhere near that level, but like that, I understand the thought process that he has. You know what I'm saying? But yeah.
And we talk about in the class too, like, you get so many people that, you know what I mean, they're coming through getting their licenses to carry a firearm. And there's a lot of firearms instructors out there that'll give people a false sense of security based on them just having one tool on their tool belt that they're good to go. And this is the answer to all your questions and all your fears, which is so far from the truth.
Right.
And I'll sit there and I'll look, and in every class I tell them, I'm like, anyone that's ever actually had to press the trigger, see a life leave a body, watch a soul leave a body, they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they don't have to press that trigger again.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to have to go through that again. They don't want anyone else to have to go through that again. So they're going to use all the other tools on their tool belt before they go to that one tool.
Right.
Situation awareness and mindset being one tool in itself, the ability to see something, you don't have to worry about an attack if I don't have to be present for it. I don't have to worry about taking a leg if I don't have to be present for it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about going to jail if I don't have to be present for it.
Right.
The flip side or the other side of that is de-escalation.
Yep.
Which is where a lot of times people that are fighters, you know what I mean, combat proficient, things like that, they're able to use their words a little bit better and communicate more effectively with people because of everything that they've done.
Mm-hmm.
And people are genuinely amazed by that because the ability to just de-escalate a situation just by communicating instead of not swallowing your pride and just bucking up.
Or just running to the fight. Or just wanting to get into the fight immediately without even trying to de-escalate. Like, I've always had a lot of respect for people that can de-escalate a situation.
And it's weird because, like, you got some veterans that need that, like we talked about,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's some veterans that do chase it.
Mm-hmm.
There's other veterans that don't chase it, you know what I mean? But they're riding that line of a protector where I'll do what I need to do. I don't want to have to do this, but I will absolutely do what I need to do. And I train to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think that, so you talked about a few times how the military conditions you into being vigilant. We've all talked about it. Now we got 3 branches here: Navy, Army, and Marines. So it starts at boot camp for sure. I don't know what your guys' experience was. I assume, like in the Marines, you guys got a real comfy bed. You guys get to bed around like 9, read some bedtime stories, milk cookies. Wake up at like
milk and
9.
crayons.
Milk and crayons. Wake up at like 9:30 in the morning.
Nobody
Drill sergeant's like, "Do you guys want to do some push-ups or something?"
No,
You guys like,
good morning, everybody.
"Hey guys, I made cupcakes. I made donuts."
Oh, just like that. Yep.
I remember night 1 at boot camp. I remember it very well. I remember like the first 24 hours. In the Army, if you're going to go into the infantry, you go to Fort Benning, Georgia, and you go to a place called 30th AG. And like they do the in-processing. So you go through like the administrative paperwork shit. And like, yeah, drill sergeants are being assholes, but not like assholes because they want you to do the paperwork so you can actually go to boot camp. And then after you finish up whatever you got to do at 30th AG, you go to Sand Hill, you start boot camp. And that's when the fuckery starts. So I remember the first night of boot camp in Fort Benning. And I think we, they call it the shark attack. And I think they do that, in other branches where it's just you get out and you just get destroyed, and drill sergeants are walking around looking for reasons to mess with you, dropping everybody, making you do ridiculous things. And then you finally get to bed at whatever time it was. I'm going to guess, I don't remember the exact time, but it was probably somewhere, honestly, between 9 and 10 p.m. And then around somewhere between midnight and 12:30, fire alarms, banging on trash cans, loud noises, air horns. The drill sergeants came onto the drill floor, started making all the noise they could, yelling, "Get up, get up, get up." And everybody's just like, what? Like, everyone's just, because it's your first night at boot camp. You don't have any experience in the military. You don't know what's happening. Guys are fumbling out of their beds, falling off the top racks, trying to get their stuff together. No, some guys don't have their stuff together yet. So everybody's trying to like get out to the drill floor. Then you're getting destroyed and smoked, and you got to do push-ups and run or whatever else you do. And then you finally get to go back to bed, and it's like half an hour before you're supposed to get up for first formation. So like right from day 1, they're like, "We're going to make you hypervigilant."
Yeah.
Navy and Marines, I assume it's the same way.
Yeah, our intake process is 3 days.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Well, because they're just like, "Hi, can you spell your name?" Nope. Okay, that's fine.
Whatever.
But honestly, though, I'm assuming. So you went in for a non-combat MOS job.
Yeah.
Did they not still fuck with you in boot camp? Did they not still like?
Oh no, they did.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Absolutely, they did.
From right from the get-go, they're immediately leaning into you to force you to kind of be on edge at all times, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, were they playing those kind of fuck games all through boot camp or
the entire time?
Yeah.
The entire time. Yeah. I remember when it was after we had finished the Crucible, and once you finish the Crucible, that's like when you officially become a Marine.
Mhm.
So we had the ceremony, we did the Warriors breakfast,
Mhm.
and I still had my job. I was a house mouse, so I had to like clean the drill instructor's duty hut. And I said something about the song Rack City. I had said something. I was like, "Hey, this is a new song." He's like, "Good. Do push-ups to the beat, but put your feet on the bunk." So I was like at an angle. So I had to do push-ups to Rack City. And this was after I had already became a Marine. I was like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like,
but like drill sergeants are just looking. And again, the goal of boot camp is what? To break you.
Oh yeah.
To get you ready for war, because there's no rhyme or reason to it, and you need to be ready at any point in time to respond to something terrible.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Absolutely. I mean, it didn't matter. Very similar in the Navy. It didn't matter if you had a combat MOS or weapons MOS or non-combat MOS. At the end of the day, any job within the military may have to pick up a weapon and fight.
Right.
Depending on where you're at, the location where you're stationed at, it didn't matter. So yeah, they're going to treat every single person the same. Yeah, intake is the same way. Pull up on the bus and it starts.
Yeah.
The whole shark attack.
Mm-hmm.
Get your feet on the yellow marks. You know what I mean?
Yellow footprint.
Yep, yellow footprints. You start yelling out, "Yes, sir," and then you're getting cussed out because you're talking to enlisted and you're not talking to officers.
Yeah.
Because you have no clue about the rank structure yet. So you're getting labeled right off the get-go.
Yeah.
Could you say "I" in the Navy?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Marine, you were this recruit.
Yeah.
You couldn't say "I."
You had to refer yourself.
This recruit request permission to do this. This recruit, yeah.
Like a third person, kind of like Pitbull.
Yep.
Well, I was just saying yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You still had to label yourself as a recruit. I mean, you got a recruit hat at boot camp. You were not Navy. You were a recruit.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
But when you look at boot camp, okay, and I don't know what they call the other branches, Army's AIT, Advanced Individual Training, what you do after boot camp. Boot camp's like 9 weeks.
Yep.
Ours is A schools.
Okay, and so depending on your MOS, I know like the Marines have the School of Infantry. And
then if you're a grunt, you go to School of Infantry and that's your MOS training. And if you're not, you go to MCT, which is Marine Combat Training.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a basically condensed version of like combat training.
How many weeks approximately?
8 maybe?
Okay. So what about you?
It varied on the job.
Yeah.
Some jobs were 4 weeks. I mean, some jobs were 2 years.
So what I'm saying is like, okay, you got boot camp and then you got AIT or whatever your schooling was for your MOS. And the entire time, like they are making you hyper vigilant. They are teaching you to be hyper vigilant, whether or not they're trying to, because it's not like there's a line the drill sergeants can push you up to and then be like, okay, we don't want to do anything more because then you might get hyper vigilant. Like they're just going to push you to the brink and then you get out and then you're out. Like there's no, what's the demode process for vigilance? Like what, I don't remember ever being talked to about that. I don't remember anybody talking to me about how to deal with the fact that I had to have my head on a swivel, 360 degree security for the past 9 months in Afghanistan or whatever it is. And now I'm just supposed to come home and just not supposed to do that, not feel that way. And whenever I even start to act that way, civilians are going to look at me like I'm the asshole, like I'm the paranoid, crazy veteran because I got blown up or I got mortared or whatever the case may be. And I see something that triggers that or I smell something that triggers that. And it's like, I feel like it's setting some guys up for failure. You know what I mean? Because of that hypervigilance. And it's such a hard thing, I think, to navigate through. And I just wish that the military made, I guess, more of an effort on like what to do when you get out and how to deal with those things. Because that's what's causing a lot of other issues for guys. Yeah. That precipitates into so many other things.
And I mean, for years, a part of that comes from the fact that mental health didn't want to be addressed prior to getting out of the military.
Right.
I mean, how many years, again, I was part of a different generation where right out of the gate, you're going through transition assistance.
You guys had pirate ships and shit? Fucking cannons. The weirdest.
Everyone said their R's really exaggerated.
Remember when they first got the first submarine? Like John
But when you're going through transition assistance, I mean, again, it was part of the generations where there was nothing wrong with you. And if there was something wrong with you, then you were labeled not so good things. You're a bitch. You're a drain on the world. You're a drain on your service.
It makes me so angry.
And So they weren't addressing that type of stuff because, again, they didn't want anyone to realize that they had these issues going on.
Mm-hmm. And like, how did that work as a culture?
Fucking, well, we're great, huh? Look at our, post 9/11 veterans.
Oh man,
as a whole.
The Governmental Accountability Office did a study. You can look this up because I've referenced it multiple times from 2017 to 2019 because so many veterans were killing themselves on VA property.
Mm-hmm.
So many veterans were killing themselves that this other organization came in. They were like, we need to look into this because they had to study it. That's why at certain hospitals, certain VAs, things like that, you look at the parking garages and there's chain link fences on the 4th floor. And you're like, that's weird. Why is this closed off? That's fucking why. That's why. And that's sad because and it's an issue that needs to get discussed.
Yeah, because it will lead to other things. It can lead to other things.
Yeah, it leads to the paranoia. It leads to all that other stuff because you don't know how to deal with it and you're just trying to suppress it all the time because you don't want to be that crazy person, but you can't help feeling the way that you feel. Nobody talks to you about it. You think you're alone. You don't know if everybody feels this way or not. And then again, it just creates more of a gap between you and the civilian population because you're like, they don't understand and they just make me feel even worse about it because I am hypervigilant. And then again, it's like weird because then some people will ask me, oh, if we shoot fireworks off, does that bother you? And I know they're doing that out of kindness, but for some reason it almost makes me mad. I'm like, no, I'm fucking fine. That doesn't bother me. I love fireworks and stuff like that. But then it's such a hard, there's so many emotions that come with that. And it's so hard for me. It was so hard for me to kind of deal with that for a while. Were you going to say?
Yeah, I think it starts with like the separation process.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is for the other branches, but for the Marine Corps, like, this is how you write a resume. This is the kind of job you probably want to get. Hey, thanks for your service.
Yeah. How long of a process was that?
It was a week, but it wasn't really.
A week?
Yeah.
And boot camp was 8-9 weeks.
13
weeks.
Yeah.
Your MOS training was another X amount of weeks.
Yep.
And then to rejoin civilian society, 1 week.
Yeah.
And we wonder why veterans have a problem transitioning into the civilian world.
And it even goes past that. I mean, if you really want to be honest, your adult formative years were spent in the military.
Yes.
Yeah. Your frontal lobe.
You were formulated in your adult years and basically through the military. So my first years as an adult, I'm in boot camp.
Yep.
Second part, I'm obviously in my job training. Then I'm actually serving, you know what I mean? And depending on when you served, if you've seen conflicts or not, you know what I mean? If you deployed, if you didn't deploy. Now you're going to transition out and week's time, we got you covered.
Yep.
Yeah. You good? Yep. All right. Bye.
Hey, thanks for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Yep. Yeah. Here's a pin.
So some other things that I found, this is on that same article on WebMD, things that hypervigilance can cause. So hypervigilance can also cause you to have a hard time sleeping, a hard time relaxing, and those things can exacerbate your anxiety. They can cause you to have angry outbursts. It might be hard to focus or talk to others, and you may not want to be in large, noisy, and or crowded areas. It can also make you suspicious of the people in your life. So all in all, it can slowly just fucking make your life miserable. Make your life miserable because you're just constantly on alert and nobody taught you how to turn it off. And I don't think you really can turn it off. I don't know how it's possible unless you are just completely accepting that terrible things can happen and there's nothing and you're not going to do anything about it. That's the only way you could just turn it off, but that's not in us because that's why we joined the military, right? So it's like, I don't think it's something that can be turned off. And if it continues, like I'd mentioned earlier, you can reach a state of paranoia and thinking that the worst possible things are always about to happen. So, sorry.
I was going to say, I had that when it came to hospitals for a while.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wouldn't go.
Can you explain why?
Yeah. Yeah, I had a bad checkup once and it didn't. No, because of my vision.
Right. I wanted in case somebody did not know why you have that reaction with hospitals.
Yeah. So
it's because you went to a hospital to have a surgery done. That surgery, there was an issue with the surgery, which then led to you being visually impaired.
Yeah.
So after that, did you just never want to go to talk to a doctor, period?
Yeah, I'm still a little weary about doctors and like surgeries and stuff. Like I had a hernia and they're like, yo, we should probably fix that with surgery. I was like, should we though?
I got duct tape, man.
It's fine. I'll just push it back in. It's fine. But
yeah. No, I can understand that. And not to that degree, obviously, but there is a decent amount of veterans who have had poor experiences with the VA. And because of that, they refuse to ever go back again. I think it's a mixed bag. I think it's a mixed bag like any organization. I've had good experiences and bad ones. But the thing about it is when you're having a bad experience, just like anything else, you can go to McDonald's. Maybe McDonald's is not a great example, but you go to a restaurant 10 times. And if you have a terrible experience that 10th time, you might not ever go back again.
Regardless. I was going to say, you can't use McDonald's because you can't get food poisoning from food that's not real.
That's true. You can leave a cheeseburger out for like a year and it looks the same. And that's sort of weird.
So you can't use McDonald's.
That's fair. Do you guys feel like hypervigilance has affected your daily lives, whether it be through relationships, your own mental health, or no? What do you guys think?
I don't think I mean, sometimes in some situations, just by being visually impaired.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really feel that like you guys both had combat experience. I never experienced combat. So I've never really had to be on alert all the time. I mean, like you were talking about skills that you've learned that you want to show your family. Dude, I'm a mean cook. Like I make some bomb ass dinners.
You do. I've come over for dinner. Like, you are a very good cook.
So, well, thank you. But yeah, no, I really don't. I feel like I'm not really. I guess I would be living in like the yellow as you described. Like I'm aware.
Yeah.
But I'm not like on edge.
No,
quite a bit.
I think that's probably a good thing. Like that's probably, you know what I mean? That's great. Good. What about you, John?
Absolutely. I mean, you can talk to just about anyone within my family.
Yeah.
And like, especially the kids growing up.
Yeah.
They've asked several times. In fact, a couple of them have seen some of my, issues where I'll have an episode out in town. And so a couple of the kids kind of know my triggers. They'll see how I am before something happens. If I'm about to have an episode, where they've now been able to translate to me what I look like in that moment. But they've asked the questions, you know what I mean? Like obviously talking to their mom and things like that. Like, why is he like that?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
And none of them have yet came to me to ask me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why I'm the way that I am.
Yeah.
And it could be many different factors.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, so I mean, it definitely has had an effect on everyday life and friends, family. They had different points. Some friends shied away because again, they don't know what it is. They don't know how to deal with it. They think you're you're paranoid,
right?
Not knowing the difference. And so they start to shy away from it all.
Yeah.
And so you lose some friends, which, hey, they weren't friends in the first place, if that's the case.
Which is true.
Even lost family at different points because of that.
Yep.
Which again, they might still be your family, but doesn't mean that they need to be a part of your life. So I'd have to define that as, I mean, it has affected my life personally.
Well, no. What I had a really difficult time was, so I get out of the military and I had a different experience because I was in the National Guard. So I was home and then we mobed and then we deployed and we came back, we demobed, went back to my unit, went right back to civilian life. Started having my issues, just feeling like I didn't belong here, all that, everything, a lot of mental stuff. And then, so I started working as a private military contractor, doing high threat protective security, private security detail shit, any of that stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan with State Department DOD. So for a couple of years between Iraq and Afghanistan, I was still in that high threat environment. When I left there as a contractor, there is no demob. There is no nothing. It's a job and your job's over later. Like there is nothing. Like I don't remember there being anything for either the State Department or DOD as far as like a demob process as a contractor. And you're doing the same thing. I was security on an advanced team with the State Department. DOD was just straight up PSD stuff. But like you're living in that life for so long. And then when I quit, what did I do? I did executive protection. So I came back to the state. But I'm still in that world of constantly assessing for threats. Like literally, that's your job. When you're sitting there, like even if you want to get lost in thought, like you're constantly assessing threats. Every drive, every route you're on, everything you're doing, you're constantly looking around. You're constantly trying to understand what's going on. What could that guy be doing? Is that guy on a cell phone? Was that guy blah, blah, blah. To go from that to just come here and just expect to just blend in. Like I have an immense amount of respect for people that can do that. Because I had such a hard time for so long, which is why I really, again, loved being a private investigator, which I did after my time in the EP world, because I was completely alone. And even if I was acting weird or whatever, I was by myself. So nobody could see me. Nobody could judge me. Like it was okay. But it was very hard for me to break that. And I didn't acknowledge it for the longest time, like I said, until like one of the times where Ashley was like, I can't take you to the store anymore because of how I was acting, because of how like my heart would beat through my chest when I was doing something like that. And then you're out with your kid or kids. And if you're in the PSD world or your spouse or whoever, your family, friends, and it's almost like you look at them as if they are the people that you're protecting, right? That's what you are as a father, right? And so how are you not supposed to immediately go back to what you were over there or how you handled yourself or how you dealt and navigated through any of those social situations when you had somebody that you had to protect? So it's like, no, yeah, I can't focus. I can't focus on a conversation I'm having with you because my kids are running around doing whatever they're doing and I need to constantly focus on them. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's definitely affected a lot of areas of my life. How do you handle it? How do you cope with it?
For me, I mean, you and I, again, we had very similar experience. Obviously, military, coming out, contracting, EP world, celebrity protection, all that good stuff.
Cotton candy making.
Hey. Yep. I just started that recent.
We've been there.
Within the last 6 months.
Fucking phenomenal at it too.
But I did try obviously different jobs after those that can't say I did bad at, but it never obviously.
What kind of, I want to see you like working at like Hallmark or something. Like, what do you mean? What other jobs did you try?
I ran restaurants.
I could, yeah, okay. Leadership roles and management stuff. Yep. I could definitely see that.
I did corporate and non-corporate restaurants for a while. Then I was in the construction side of things.
Yep.
Stick building houses out in Shorewood.
Yep.
And then I got into project management. And then that's about the time when I started getting some help and things that I needed. And I realized I got sick and tired of making everyone else millionaires.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make my own legacy.
Hell yeah.
And I could say ever since I've started Guardian, I've actually kind of embraced it.
Yeah.
Which rightfully so, because if you're going to teach people about personal defense, you should understand why you are the way you are, how you can utilize it to be better.
Yeah.
To where you don't necessarily allow it to become paranoia and graduate into those other things.
That's true. I like that. Yeah.
So understanding how, and again, I use control loosely, but understanding how to control it a little bit better. And again, I use control loosely.
Well, it's being aware of it and not hiding from it and running it and trying to suppress it and then letting it come out because you turn into a pressure cooker and then you have an episode in a public place. Like at least you're actively thinking about it, talking about it, and dealing with it. And I've really started to
figure out over the last 5-6 years what the triggers are.
Yeah.
And that's what the biggest thing is, at least for me from having an episode, what are my triggers? So that way it doesn't graduate into something else. So I can still do my job of what I'm trying to do, which is be vigilant and paying attention to what's going on around, protecting my loved ones, protecting the people that I love. And if need be, you start to recognize some possible issues. So now the hypervigilance comes into play. You go to that condition orange.
Right.
And start making moves in order to avoid that said situation.
Yeah.
As long as you're able to.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I did. I just started to embrace it and figure out how I can best use it in life to where it doesn't become counterproductive.
Yeah. And you're letting a little bit of pressure out of that pressure cooker because of that. Because
you're teaching students about it. Because essentially, if you think about it, I am talking about it at that point.
Right.
So whether it's, I'm not necessarily talking with a medical professional about it, but I am letting it loose some in regards to making people aware as to what they need to be doing to better protect themselves. So I'm getting therapy out of it in that, because now I'm communicating and I'm not just building and compartmentalizing like we all love to do so much, is shoving things in the boxes until they overflow. And then when they overflow, that's when eruption happens.
Yeah. And I also appreciate about you how you go about teaching your classes, because you're not, like you said, just making it seem like this is the best answer, just immediately jump to shooting somebody. Like, I feel like that would be turning your hypervigilance into more of a paranoia and things like that. But you're trying to deal with it in as healthy as a way as in as healthy of a way as possible, I think. Brad, do you feel like if this is something that you have to cope with? Do you and if so, how so? What do you think?
I think just when I'm out in public, because when John was talking, I thought of something. You guys talking about like protecting your family. I feel like when it comes to like certain situations, I can't do that. So I think, and in those situations, I feel like I'm a little more on edge. Yeah. And like heightened and stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be difficult too.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Now, there are some other coping strategies and techniques. Again, this is that same WebMD article that have been helpful for managing some hypervigilance symptoms. And here are a few of them. 1, taking a break, trying yoga or gentle stretching. That's what I think John should do.
Yoga?
Like right in the middle of assessing a threat. Just like
Dumber dog.
Yeah. Immediately do that. Gentle stretching, listening to upbeat music or meditating. I will say, I will totally say that about listening to upbeat music. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Like, especially like, you are what you surround yourself with. You are what you tell yourself when you're alone and you are not doing well and you are in a tough spot or you're feeling hypervigilant or whatever the case may be. The things that you allow yourself to listen to have a really big impact on how you're doing.
Define upbeat music.
Walking on sunshine.
I would say, are we talking like 5 Finger Death Punch?
I'm talking, dude. So when I was overseas in Afghanistan, one of my drivers, he was South African. His name was Dimitri. He was on a SWAT team in South Africa. Like, dude had seen things and done things. Okay. And he had like lots of stories that I can't ever say again. And the weirdest thing about him was he only listened to music that was sung by a female artist. And he was a driver. So you would hop into his car and he's blaring Katy Perry, Miley Cyrus, any of that other stuff, like in Afghanistan, like all the time. And so we just got in the habit of it. And it was just so funny to me because we're driving through Kabul, Afghanistan, blaring Party in the USA, not giving a shit about anything. So, but it's what I will say, like, pop music's pop for a reason. Like, you listen to certain music and it does kind of make you feel a little bit better. So to answer John's question, I would just say something that makes you feel upbeat and positive. When you listen to that music, if it makes you feel positive, because if you listen to like some Chris Cornell or something like that, where it's like, man, like he's pulling you into the depth of, or any artist that's pulling you into the depths of like their depression or sadness or addiction or whatever it was they were dealing with when they wrote this song, you feel that. You're like, oh man, like it has such an impact on you. Whatever it is. Why? What are you laughing about?
I was just going to say, every Taylor Swift breakup song, I feel.
Yeah.
Feel it. Like, well, damn, Taylor.
I don't know. It's important to try to surround yourself with things that make you speak in a more positive language to yourself, regardless of what that music is. If it's giving you a positive message that you are now saying to yourself, I think that that's what's important personally. But some other things, obviously taking deep breaths, slowly inhaling, holding for a beat, then exhaling, being mindful, counting to 10 very slowly, getting exercise, talking to somebody. All of those things are things that you can do if you're dealing with being hypervigilant. One of the things that I'll say is, honestly, talking to someone is really important. Finding somebody who understands what you've been through. You might not think anybody understands, but if you're in the veteran community, talk to another veteran. If you have been abused, if you have gone through, if you have been raped, if you have been through any of those terrible traumatic situations, there are groups out there where you can talk to other people that have been through other things. And is it intimidating because you have to talk about your vulnerabilities and trauma? Absolutely. But the peace I believe you'll get from not feeling alone trumps those other things, in my opinion. So I can't stress it enough, talk to somebody if you feel like you're dealing with these types of things. And also know that if those do not work, you can talk to a mental health professional. You can explore the options of therapy and medication. I'm not heavy into medication, but the thing of it is some people need it, some people don't. And guess what? I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you whether you do or don't. But there's some people out there who have a level of paranoia, especially in the veteran community, especially ones that are messing around with substances, untreated mental health issues, all this other stuff, who reach a level of paranoia where you're like, you need to talk to somebody, and you probably need to try a medication to see if it helps. And that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It means that you're succeeding because you figured out that there's an issue and you're trying to do something to make it better. So that's how I feel about that. Some other coping strategies and support systems. You do have the VA. They do have programs out there. Nonprofit organizations, Project Headspace and Timing, peer support groups. Again, like I said, it's so beneficial just to not feel alone. Is there anything else that you guys think of that I missed that somebody could do if they were dealing with being hypervigilant? Finding constructive outlets, like John had mentioned, that wasn't listed on there. Now, there's a very fine line.
There is.
And I don't know what that line is.
Because it's different for every person.
It's different for every person. But to be able to acknowledge that you have these issues and do something with it that's constructive has to be one of the most positive things you can do with being hypervigilant.
That's the same thing we talked about in the peer support groups. Because, I mean, you got some people that love golf.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in the wintertime, they struggle a little bit because it's kind of hard to play golf in the winter. So we found some of those guys to go find a golf simulator.
Yep.
So that way they can still do what keeps them, you know what I mean, somewhat grounded.
And found an outlet
that's constructive.
Absolutely.
So
Very
again,
important.
figuring out what your outlet is and obviously make it as constructive as possible.
Why do you guys think veterans are not getting help in dealing with being hypervigilant? Deep breath time. Why, John? What are you thinking? Yeah. Is it because you think that veterans don't want to seem like they're the paranoid, crazy vet? Is it because you think that they don't want to admit that they have a problem?
There's a lot of factors.
Yeah, for sure.
One, self-awareness. If you got a new vet that just transitioned into the civilian world, they're still trying to figure out. All they know is what the norm was.
You can smell them too. Like with their haircut, the way that they stand, everything. You're like, bro, you got out today.
And they're gonna hold themselves like that for a while. They've still been somewhat programmed that there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them. So they're gonna continue on. Yeah. Then you got older veterans where, you know what I mean, some older veterans still haven't got the help they got. One, because of issues with the system. Right. Which not going to get into that because we can spend the next week-long podcast talking about issues with the system. I know. Yeah. But again, and there's pros and cons of the system, just like any system. Right. I'm not gonna sit there and say the system's all bad. There's, again, it depends on the needs of the veteran. And then the stigma that goes along with it from the public. So it's like, again, how does a veteran get help when initially they're coming out, there's nothing wrong with them. They don't think there's anything wrong with them. But then once they learn there is something wrong with them, well, now everyone starts looking at them funny. Yeah. Or, you know what I mean? Now, depending, again, what issues that they're currently having, if it graduated into other things, now are they going to lose some of their rights? You know what I mean? If they're on certain drugs or this, that, the other. I mean, there's a whole array of reasons why veterans aren't getting the assistance that they need. And there's a lot of misinformation out there in regards to that as well. And that is another issue. Yes. We've had issues with misinformation being put out. You know what I mean? Like, if you have PTSD, you will not have your guns. That is a lie. Right. Okay.
Right.
We need a lot of veterans to understand that, because veterans need to be able to have the ability to protect what they love.
Right.
And if their immediate thought is, I'm going to lose my rights to be able to do that, well, I'm just going to deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure the proper information is getting out to people, so that way veterans know that they can get the help that they need. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to lose rights.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Flip side is that if your hypervigilance is turned into paranoia, and now you're starting to have some of those suicidal, homicidal thoughts, well, that's a whole separate thing.
Right.
In which case you need to get a higher level of professional care.
Right.
And yes, I mean, for the time being, you may not have some things available.
Right.
And that's okay, because you need to help yourself long before you can ever help anyone else.
Agreed.
So you're worthless in protecting your loved ones if you aren't yourself in at least a decent place and be able to do so.
Yeah, that's a good answer, I think. And I feel like, what?
No, that was a good answer. I was like, what John said.
What John said?
Yes.
Well, because in the media, movies, TV shows, stuff like that has not helped.
No.
Because again, I don't feel like it's just me, but I feel, there was always that stereotype of the crazy old paranoid veteran, you know what I mean? And it's like, and you're going to say that out of one side of your mouth. And then on the other side, you're going to be like, thank you for your service. We support the troops. And it's like, okay, I appreciate that. I understand that. I'm sure that you do. But understand that if you support the troops, you support the veterans in the military, then you have to understand that they were subjected to some things that you may not ever be able to understand. And they're trying to deal with that every single day. They're trying to deal with everything that they saw and did and be in the civilian world. And that is a very tough thing for some folks to do, understandably so. Did you have any other thoughts, Brad, on why you think vets aren't getting help when it comes to dealing with their hypervigilance?
No, I think it's just the stigma thing and
Yeah.
And John pretty much covered it all. I was like, geez.
Yeah,
my bad.
No, I think that's.
I mean, that was
Yeah, I thought that was good. Did you guys have anything else that you think, feel, want to talk about in regard to hypervigilance?
I don't. I mean, we pretty much covered it from. I mean, what I say, beginning to end type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
How to recognize it, how to understand it, how to cope with it, different aspects as far as that, and what else can you really talk about in regards to it
What do you do for a veteran that you see that is going through an episode of being extremely hypervigilant? What do you think the best thing somebody can do is?
Just what we've already talked about. Figure out what their constructive outlet's going to be.
Yeah. And talk to them and try not to, I don't know how else to say this, but not to like stifle them, argue with them, be that brick wall.
Yes. No, you
let them get a little bit of that energy out. But at the same time, because I've had guys, have these kind of flashbacks, not like the TV shows and stuff like that, but like, they're lost in an episode of being extremely hypervigilant. And I will always, like any other time, I'll slow my voice down. I'll lower it a little bit and I'll be like, hey man, do you know where you are right now? Hey, you're with me. You're okay. We're okay. Like, let's talk about this. Just trying to calm that energy down, because one of the things that helps, in my opinion, a lot of those vets out is when they're around other veterans, because they don't feel like they have to be in survival mode. Like hypervigilance, you feel like you're in survival mode and you feel like you're alone. But when you're with other people that would do anything for you, doesn't that feel like a little bit of a relief? Like,
absolutely.
Yes. Am I protecting these people? Yes, but they're also protecting me. So it's like, hey, you're around people that love you. You're around people that care about you.
And that's the ability just to go in and de-escalate.
Right.
It sounds like that's an abrasive term. You know what I mean? It's not, when you say de-escalate, it sounds like something's bad's happening.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean that something's bad is happening. It's just there's a situation going on. And again, people may not realize how much pitch and tone and body language
always
can extremely change a situation in itself.
Yes.
So if I'm going in at someone and be like, bro, what's the matter with you? Stop.
What's your fucking problem?
You know what I mean?
Like, yeah.
I'm only exasperating and making it worse because now they're jumping even more. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? What's the matter with me? What?
Yeah.
But just like you said, you change your tone of voice, you change your pitch. Hey, you know where you're at.
Yeah. I would talk a little softer and a little lower because I want you to focus on listening more.
Exactly.
So I slow it down just a touch. And then I start start saying things to make you present in the moment. Because right now your mind is going to some other place.
And that's exactly it. So the electrical impulses in your brain are flying.
Yeah.
By you slowing down the whole tempo of everything, that allows some of those impulses to slow down themselves.
Yeah.
And again, people don't necessarily realize that.
Yeah.
Because most people aren't attuned to how the brain works and what it actually does for you. And the people that are genuinely dealing with it, you know what I mean? Those are the ones that usually understand a little bit more, whether it be through experience, education, anything along those lines of why people are the way that they are.
Yeah.
I mean, me being again, instructor, I'm very in tune with how people learn and why do they do the things that they do and what are the outcomes from it and what happens to the body, what happens to the mind when you're in those different situations.
Yep.
So it's essentially, like I said, if I see someone, I definitely am like you, change how the situation's going, try and slow the brain down, figure out what constructive outcomes or outlets that they have, find out what their likes are, what truly is their likes. Because they'll just blare out some stuff. You know what I mean? Most veterans will be like, I love shooting. Okay. Is that enough to slow you down though?
Right.
And you truly got to find out if that's enough to slow them down, or if that just a temporary fix for 3 minutes because it's loud enough to outweigh their thoughts.
Yeah.
But the second they walk off the range, they're right back to it. Okay, that's not a constructive outlet then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it did not accomplish what it needed to accomplish.
And it's just, again, the response that you have to a vet or anybody that's experiencing one of those moments is so incredibly, incredibly important. And like, I don't think I'm a professional or anything of the nature, but I've dealt with that experience many times with myself and with other people. And so my thoughts are, if you experience somebody that's in one of those moments that's extremely hypervigilant, you try to be very mindful of your own response. How am I talking to this person? You know, am I making this person feel defensive? You know, I just want to slow things down for them and make sure that they understand that they're safe and it's okay and we're here for them. And you're not going to see them just turn on a dime and be like, oh, okay. I mean, you might, but probably not. It's, again, you're de-escalating. It's not a wall. It's like a slow process. Like you're just kind of trying to bring them back. So if you are supportive of the veteran community or just humanity in general, and you see somebody that's extremely hypervigilant, you can calm them down a little bit. And the way that you respond is extremely, extremely important. And guilting somebody, making someone feel bad, being very aggressive, loud in their face, like that's never the answer for like fucking anything. So you need to try to just calm down and make sure that you are approaching that situation in the same way you would want someone to approach you.
I'm a huge proponent for, I tell people a lot, it costs $0 to show any type of kindness, compassion, or empathy. It costs you $0.
And you never know what somebody's going through when, like, you bump into somebody on the street, when you get into an altercation because somebody cut in front of you at Walgreens or whatever it is. Like, you have no idea where that person's mind's at right now. And I feel like we're oblivious to that. I think that it's something you have to be mindful of more often, is like the person that did whatever they did that wasn't personal against you, they might be having the worst day of their life. I'm sure right after my mom died, when I was out in public, I was in cruise control. I didn't know what the hell I was doing half the time. You know what I'm saying? So yes, to have a degree of empathy and just love and understanding is invaluable, I think. So other than that, so today we defined hypervigilance. We talked about the symptoms, relationship with mental health. We talked about some coping strategies and some treatment options with our friend, the Cotton Candy Man, John Haberkamp. John, if people want to find you other than like maybe hire you for cotton candy services or anything like that, where do people go to learn more about everything with Guardian Concepts?
Basically, to learn more, they'll go to our website, which is guardian-concepts.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can pretty much find out everything that we do there. I mean, obviously, you can search us on social media as well. Just search up Guardian Concepts. We are located in Kankakee, so right here in our backyard. And that's essentially how you would find us.
Very cool. Thank you again, John, for being here. I appreciate it, my friend. Please make sure if you want to get a hold of John or us, you can reach out to us on our website, projectheadspaceandtiming.org, social media, Project Headspace and Timing. You can email us. You can email me at ericp@projectheadspaceandtiming.org. Also, we as an organization have just started up a veteran spousal peer support group. They have had 2 meetings so far. It's going fairly well. So if you're in the Kankakee County area and you are a spouse or partner of a veteran or currently serving military member, reach out to us. They are going to start meeting on a monthly. They are currently meeting on a monthly basis, and they're going to start meeting more often. We talked about peer support groups before. 2 of them we do at Guardian Concepts in Kankakee. We have a Monday night group general session at 7 p.m. We have Mad Jack's 12-step non-denominational 12-step group, which is on Wednesdays at 6. And then we have a general session on Fridays at Uplifted Care's Grief Center at noon. So until next time, make sure if you need the help, you're getting the help. We hoped that in today's episode, we helped you go from being freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional to truly being fine.